We've got enough scale to get, direct to supplier relationships, so we're getting good margin. All of a sudden, we start hearing this like COVID stuff. Like,
100% of your clients were restaurants, right?
yeah.
Wow.
And it got shut down. So like, everybody went home, and we ended up, I think, losing 80% of sales in a week, 5-day period.
Big shot CEOs of major companies, they may not be the smartest in the room. Several of them are, I'm sure, incredibly brilliant. But their ability to absorb stress, I bet you they're number one in the company at that. Quick thank you to our sponsor, The Gents Place. What is The Gents Place? Imagine a country club meets speakeasy meets barbershop. If you're interested in owning and running a business that you can actually be proud of, one built with confidence, community, and consistency, this is worth a look. With top location performance exceeding $1.4 million in gross sales, they are at the cutting edge of their industry and franchising in 30-plus states across the U.S. If that lights a fire for you, go to tgpfranchising.com, complete the form, and book an intro call to learn more about owning your very own location of The Gents Place. Welcome back to the Untrapped Entrepreneur Show. Today we have Vincent Matranga today with us, and we are joined by, I call you, just based on all the information you gave, high energy, operationally focused, built a big business, which is great. Helped scale Cheetah past $150 million in sales and navigated one of the hardest collapse and rebuild stories in COVID. A lot of companies closed. Yours didn't, even though you got hit hard, which we'll talk about. And now leads Waya. He's known for learning fast, taking action, and using humor as a survival tool during high-pressure moments. So the very first thing I have to ask you, which wasn't on any interview guide or anything, Vincent, you got any good jokes? I mean,
I'm actually not great at telling jokes. It's more like self-deprecation and sarcasm. You're just sitting there. Like I remember, it's like my company Cheetah was like in the food space. We had this big warehouse, and I'm all like, we're sitting there and like something's gone horribly wrong, and there's a bunch of frozen pizza dough that's been left out in the warm. It's all blown up, from the yeast, and I'm all like, I don't think that's supposed to be here, just off the side, all the staff laugh, and then we get back to
you and I share that. I don't know any jokes. I like watching comedy, but I always like to say, like, if we're not laughing, we're crying, right? So in these really desperate situations, I'll just laugh because I don't want to.
You just got to laugh. I think that's a very entrepreneurial. You got to like flip it to whatever positive you can.
You have to, man.
Yeah, I remember like driving during COVID. I had like the road I was like, well, at least my commute to the warehouse in like 35 minutes. This is great.
I think that's something that I've noticed about all entrepreneurs, at least the ones that like stick it out, because there's some people that come in and out pretty quickly and go, that wasn't for me. But the ones that have stuck it out, we're just perpetually optimistic. Like we can see the good, even if there's like nothing to see. We will see things other people can't see because we have to, right?
Yeah. Because it's completely illogical. It's stupid. Like you should all like it. It makes no sense to like from a pure logical standpoint of like if you looked at your net present value to like become an entrepreneur, right? Like if you think about it, like if you're a really smart, like driven person, like you're gonna on average be better off like going and working at like Google, right? Like if you just run the numbers, like it's not hard to do. Right. So you've got to be a little bit crazy and a little bit, out there going, I believe in myself more than I should believe in myself. I guess is like a good way to put it.
Yeah, you're so right. I've never thought about it this way, but it's like statistically playing the lotto with your career.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, it really is. It's just like, I was like, it's like betting on something that makes no sense. It's like some silly parlay on yourself.
The house is going to win 99% of the time. And you're like, but there's a 1% chance I can win. I'll take
everything
that.
On 18 black. Like,
oh man. Well, hey, tell us about, I know you've got new things going on. Is it Waya or Waya? I always
Waya.
Waya.
Okay.
Okay. So I want to talk about Waya for sure, but you've got to tell me about Cheetah. What was the Cheetah business like? When did you start it? And just tell us about the growth story. We'll talk about the collapse and rebuild, but
Yeah.
tell me about the good times
The
first.
good times, yeah. And it's like, like sort of the growth is a hell of a drug. And like there is like a good to that when you're growing in a startup, but also a bad that I learned. And it goes toward the collapse and like how do you, prepare yourself for that? But Cheetah, we had four co-founders, right? So we had Nama, Moran, Chris Elliott, Alone, and myself. And so this sort of comes together as an amalgamation of people that like you wouldn't expect to work together. And originally, the first two that joined forces were Nama and Chris. Chris quit his day job at a food manufacturing company, basically like creating products because he was putting them into this place called Restaurant Depot. He's like, there's got to be a better way to get things to customers. There's no price transparency in the food distribution market. And I think that's an important thing to understand here is like, if you go to Safeway, everybody pays the same price. If you're a restaurant, literally a sales rep from Cisco gives a different price to you than the person down the block. Hell, they might give you a different price for your two different restaurants just to get more gross margin because what they're doing is subsidizing Burger King and McDonald's with the gross margin to get off your account. So he sees it from that angle. I had joined Nama's previous company, Sorcery, where we were trying to do the billing aspect and the AP aspect for restaurants. And we realized, oh my God, there's this huge opportunity. So we recapped Sorcery and basically found Cheetah, where we were doing an Instacart style business out of a place called Restaurant Depot. And Restaurant Depot, the best way I could put this, Costco for restaurants. I mean, like clown sized portions of food. Like the smallest order of increment for potatoes is 50 pounds, right?
Wow.
40-pound, things of mayonnaise, right? Like it is Costco on steroids. And it's basically a cash and carry. So it had price transparency. So people have to go and pick up their food, right? So they don't get it delivered, but man, you're paying the same price for potatoes as anybody else. It's about 15 to 30% cheaper than going through a broadliner like a US Foods or Cisco, which does delivery and, first degree price discrimination, right? But the problem is the experience sucked because this isn't going and buying Costco groceries for your family. It's 2,000 pounds of product that you got to lug around, right? So we basically worked with their exec team. Nama got an agreement, right? And so we had an API to their tech stack, and we built the first delivery app, right? The first app that ever existed in the food distribution space where people go online, basically click in what they wanted, and they're walking and get delivery, right? And so this is where the growth starts. We start in the Bay Area, right, in San Francisco, and we start leasing trucks, which we had terrible terms when we started, of course, and there's like nightmares of doing that. And we're like, are people going to want this? Like, instead of spending like calling up your sales rep before 5, you can order till midnight. We deliver the next day. You click in what you want. You're going to save about 15% with delivery fees over a broadliner. It turns out you'll grow about 8 to 10% month over month when you do that. Like, we had this really interesting arbitrage, right? We had this technology advantage. We're saving you hours a day on your ordering. And so we start in the Bay Area and it's like, man, between like 2017, like we are like literally 8% month over month growth
When did you
in a
guys
physical world.
found the company? What year?
Original founding sort of like 2015, 2016, but things
Okay.
really, we sort of recapped and did all of that in 2017, right? So that's when we really pulled it together. We basically had it as a side offshoot project at Sorcery. And then we're like, this is actually the company, right?
Mm.
Like you're,
Mhm.
you're sort of testing, you're like, which one's linear growth? Which one's exponential? Can't tell early on. And then you get that, right? From the delivery. And it turns out like people don't want an AP solution. People want the crap that they're going to cook on time at the right price, right? Because your average restaurant, even if they're successful, 2% EBITDA at best,
Mm.
2 to 3%, right? That's why so many go out of business. So about their highest cost is labor, followed by supplies, right? And so once we knew that, then it was all about building the app and the physical infrastructure. And here's where it gets interesting is our rate limiting factor was scaling ops initially. I can't find another refrigerated truck. I need another driver. Oh, that driver used a company credit card to, book a hotel and a movie date with her. Now I have to let this person go because you broke a bunch of laws. So you're living in that world where like you need to like train people to deal with like food products, right? And and then actually get like the physical infrastructure. It's like a new truck. It's not like a U-Haul. It's got a refrigeration unit on it. And those take, 6 months to build. There's only so many extra in the market, right? There's sort of a custom job. And so at a certain point in time, like we're like, oh my God, we've got all this pent up demand. We're like maxing out orders at like 8 p.m. and I can't find a fucking truck to
Wow,
like
that's.
increase my volume. Um,
I mean, did you expect to? I mean, when you got into the business, you're a tech company, right? But then you become a trucking company at some point,
yeah.
more of a trucking company than anything else, because all the
Yeah.
tech work is kind of done.
Yeah. I mean, like, and there's all this stuff you can do with tech, but it's like all of a sudden, if your ops don't work, like nobody gives a shit.
Hmm.
Right. And so you think of this as like Amazon's a tech company, but Amazon's an ops company.
Yeah,
Right. And now they've got pure tech wings, right? When you think about AWS and, Prime Video and all that. But originally it's like, yeah, it's tech, but it's tech enabled operations. So, when you're like raising money from VCs, you've got to pick the right ones because if they don't understand that, like, I couldn't 5X my company in a year because
yeah.
literally there's not the physical world
Well, and you know what?
capability to do it.
Amazon was using the postal service, UPS,
Yep.
FedEx, all of that. You guys were having to build that out
Yeah,
on
we
your
tried to
own.
3PL that, like not a good idea because it's like
Yeah.
it's not a box of, paper towels only. It's like somebody actually has to know how to like handle tomatoes
Hmm.
versus broccoli versus a bag of flour that's, basically bagged up in paper mache to cut costs from the manufacturer, right? And so it's a very interesting place to be, but also your tech super important because like we allowed people, everybody was calling up on the phone or having their sales rep take an order by hand from an old school distributor. And our tech allowing you to like organize your shopping cart in the same order that your supplies were set up in your walk in. So they'd walk around, click, 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 click,
Hmm.
two of these, I'm out of tomato. Like it's important, right? And so you have to merge those two promises. And as my co founder Chris said, it's like, I never had a problem with delivery times until I had my second customer because everybody wants it at 7:30 a.m. And so how do you incentivize earlier or later deliveries? And what we found is like we were just growing. So we opened up with Restaurant Depot, the SF store. Then it's like Oakland, LA1, San Jose, LA2, Seattle, Dallas. Like we just start rolling these in. Like and this is sort of like the ops, like I'm the ops person. It's like build a playbook. Look, I took something from earlier in my career, which was like the rollout of Epic at a Sutter facility. I'm like, how do you playbook something from like the OR at facility one and move it to OR facility two, right? So that's like bam, 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 we start growing.
Yeah. Well, I have a big
And
belief that systems fail, people don't, right?
yeah,
So in the absence of a system,
yeah.
you're toast. Let's skip. I want to talk more about Way on this call because the future is bright.
Yep.
But tell me ultimately, like, what was the peak at Cheetah? What were you guys doing in sales? And then you got to give me the dark side.
Yeah.
What happened during COVID?
Yeah. So the preface is we're growing, we're expanding with Restaurant Depot. They start seeing us, we're basically cannibalizing a lot of their business, right? People are just switching to delivery. And we're breaking their stores. So they've got at a high level a couple loading docks. They're built for food in the back, sales out the front, right? Like Costco. So we are literally jamming up their store. We're doing, you know, 150K and then like a day out of like one store. Like we are just breaking it. We did those like only one dock we can load our trucks out of the back, right? With
Mhm.
pallets. And I remember I was sitting with Chris one day, we do like the math, and I'm a ex lean person, right? And I'm like, well, if we like optimize blah 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 to double our sales out of this building, we need 36 hours a day. And I'm like, oh shit, like let's string theory and can actually bend the loss of space time. I think we're pretty fucked.
Mhm.
So we come to this realization that the only way to keep expanding and hit operational KPIs because it's like we don't hold the inventory in our system. And so we could promise Coca-Cola to you as a customer, and then another person comes through the front door and takes it all. Right. So we had really bad out of stocks. We're starting to break the stores. We're missing ETAs. We're like, we have to vertically integrate like Amazon did eventually. We gotta go from picking out of stores, right? And I think at our max we were doing about 155 million annualized. So
Wow.
that's a lot of
Yeah.
sales. And we're like, holy shit, we've got to transition this whole thing. So literally commissioned a project on the side in secret, which is very hard to do when your first value as a company is transparency,
Yeah.
right? Like, but you got to do it. Like nobody can find out. Nobody. We got to do this in secret. Got a building, built an entire team to transition literally not owning inventory to owning the inventory.
So you become Restaurant Depot in secret,
Yeah.
buying and selling to yourself.
Yep. Yeah. Vendor relationships, created a separate shell company called Take, which has a Latin term on it, but it's like basically like, pick your own day, and like, and so we're like, okay, we've got to do this. It takes about a year of planning. We start the transition in September. On September 16th is our first wave of customers transitioning from the old infrastructure to the new infrastructure. And we finished that transition in the Bay Area on February 19th, 2020. So it gets interesting right after this, right? We're about halfway through transitioning the LA market. We couldn't find anything suitable for a warehouse for Seattle, so we knew we just had to cut that market and reopen later. And we had a warehouse that we were going to launch at the beginning of April in Dallas. Great facility for us, right? So we've got this whole thing. We've got enough scale to get, direct to supplier relationships, so we're getting good margin. We're going to subsidize this obviously during our growth period with VC, not earn really any money, but we're going to hyperscale, right? Think about what something like DoorDash and was all the rage back then. And then all of a sudden we start hearing this like COVID stuff, like, right? Nama gets the inkling about a week before it gets really bad. She's like, people are clearing out shelves in New York, right? It hits and the stay-at-home order goes in, I think, on the 13th or 14th of March. I forget exactly the day that they announce it, but I remember I'm flying to my LA facility to do a visit on the weekend right before the shutdown happens on the Monday, right? Sunday to Monday. And people, it's literally like nobody has a mask, nobody's talking. The airport is fucking empty. Like I'm in LAX when I land. There is nobody there.
Which
Like
is
if you've been
super
to
creepy,
LAX,
by the way. Like for LAX to be empty,
oh
that's like
yeah,
zombie apocalypse.
zombie apocalypse. Nobody wants to touch anything because they don't understand what's going on. This is about the 11th or 12th of March. 2020. So it's like somebody's going to the bathroom in a porta potty. Like everybody's sort of like squat, like not touching anything. Like they don't know what to do. I get there and I'm like, I instantly know. I'm like, we're in a world of hurt. It is a straight line graph shit show. The first week of COVID, like the shutdown. Look, 80%. It's like your middle schooler, like when they're in middle school. It's like, what's the slope of this fucking line?
Yeah,
It's not
because
good.
100% of your clients were restaurants, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it got shut down. So like, everybody went home, like, sourdough starter, all, like you're cooking at home. That's why grocery stores got like, they went out of stock. There was the right amount of food in the market. There's also the right amount of toilet paper manufacturing in the market, but not for B2C, right?
Yeah.
And so it completely flipped it. And we ended up, I think, losing 80% of sales in a week, 5-day period, right? It's all perishable. I just loaded up, right?
Yeah.
And so I think like you end up throwing away millions of dollars, like literally like a couple million, like $3 million worth of product.
Wow.
Get perishable. I'm like, I can't sign a contract fast enough and get the right licensure with Safeway to give them our chicken. They want it, but I can sell to restaurants. I can't sell to, a supermarket.
Because of regulations.
Yeah, totally. Like, what type of vendor am I? And then you got to set up things and be a supplier FDA. But like chicken has 7 days
Yeah.
from when it hits your dock, right? And so you just go like, you can sort of see the business melt, right? Like, or at least that iteration, and we can get into sunk cost bias and all that type of stuff. But basically, you turn into a peacetime growth. Like, how do we grow to a wartime founder, right? And I think the Horowitz has that great book. It's like peacetime and wartime, right? And so it's like
things about hard things. Great book.
Yeah, great book. And it's like, yeah, you just gotta like, you're not sleeping. Like, and you just got to get to brass tacks and figure out what the hell is going on, frankly, at that point in time.
And you guys had raised, is this right? You raised $130 million?
total about 120, 130 million dollars.
Wow.
This was our Series B. We actually raised a Series C of about 60 after all of this, after the survival to go sort of a slightly different direction. But 2020 was, I would say, the darkest of times, but you find some light and humor in it all. We actually launched B2C and we did this whole program of like allowing consumers to come. We used our trucks as like little hubs, and then people like you, because people couldn't find food, and we would actually sell and do contactless delivery, putting the food in the back of a your car for you, right? With like infection control standards, right? Had to set that up for like an entire new warehousing organization, right? Which cratered culture for that. We're just starting with that world, and then it's like, yeah, you guys can't talk. You can't go near each other because if we get three community spreads, we're shut down for another week for government regulations.
Wow. Okay, so tell me about the transition. Like, what happened after you guys lost everything? How'd you build it back up? Where'd the company ultimately end up? Because I know you've moved
Yeah,
on to something new, but I
yeah,
definitely want to hear I want to know the final chapter there with you.
yeah. So I mean, like the first thing is like you got to stabilize, right? And so you know, the first part is like you gotta make the hard choices, right? You know, we're not gonna fully launch LA, shut it down. We're not launching that. Like you just have to like make those calls. You're gonna have to do uh, some pretty massive layoffs, right? Because like you just don't have the sales, right? And it's something we actually didn't do a great job. In my opinion, my co-founder Nama's opinion is like we did like 3 rounds of layoffs. So like one of our investors like you just need to pull the band-aid once, and like is a
Yeah.
big learning of like this just is what it is, and like you're not going to see that recovery. So first is like normalizing your operational spend, right? On any company, when you're in good times, you can ride that growth for investment, but the bad times, you just gotta get tight, right? Because you got to sort of turtle shell it. So I think that's the first phase of this. Um, Very stressful. This is probably where the burnout started for me, where it's just like 18-hour days, 6, 7 days a week. I like it was so bad I lost a patch of my beard about the size of a silver dollar over here. That's
Just from
probably a bad
stress?
sign. But probably from the stress,
The
right?
stress, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, my beard had grown out like super long, and I was like, like not taking care of myself. I shaved it off, and it's like little spot and just freaking, you
Yeah.
know, just grows, and I'm all like, maybe that's like the canary in the coal mine for the
Yeah.
body saying like, you're not doing things right. So 2020 was also a time of like rediscovery of like you can be in a high stress situation, but like you've got to make time for yourself, for sleep, for exercise, to do the right things, right? And if there's a huge emergency and like there's a COVID outbreak in your facility, like you got to key in and work really hard, but also realize like you got to get off that train, right? For periods of time and take care of yourself, as bad as it seems, because then you're no good to your company, to your family, to anybody.
Yeah.
Like you can't you can't fight through it. So 2020, we're going through that. And then it was, okay, what can get us excited about the future? Like, this low cost distributor, like we're not going to be able to, do that blitz scale again because like the secret's out of the bag, right? And, life happens and COVID
Did
hits.
by the way, did Restaurant Depot, did that relationship end once you guys started doing your own thing?
Yeah, they were like, you need to be out of the store, by like beginning of April. Like, and this was a
Really?
great, yeah.
Entirely. Like our relationship is done since you
Yeah,
guys
the
are
contract's done. But a very interesting group. Like they're just some of the best business people I've ever met. Like it's not like they send us a thank you, like Christopher. They'll send notes right after like good luck on your thing. But it's like if you're going to be competing directly as taking from a supplier, can't can't shop out of our store
yeah.
at scale, right? And it's totally valid. We expected that, right, at some level. And I'd done through scenario planning. We did this whole thing called the Kaikaku of like blow up your business and recreate it anew. And I had 4 different scenarios of like what would happen. Like they're our partner, unlikely. They tell us to fuck off immediately. That's actually how
Mhm.
we had it written.
Yeah.
They tell us to F off, but we've got a time period, which is what they did, right? So like I didn't have COVID and a worldwide outbreak on my bingo
Yeah.
card for those scenarios,
Right.
but we had these different things to figure out how we transition customers and move on. But like, yeah, of course, that relationship in that way is going to end. Um, but it's not like hard feelings. They're not like vindictive. They're just great brass, like some of the best brass tacks business people you will ever meet. I mean, what, $9, $10 billion business on like food distribution, tiny margins. Like they
Yeah,
know how to
that's
run
tough.
their, yeah,
You
it's
gotta be
tough.
smart to make that work at scale.
Super smart, super savvy, right? Not mean, just like, oh, well, the numbers say do this. So
Yeah, yeah,
still get a drink with you, but
yeah. Okay, so you guys, so what happens next?
so next we get into survival mode and we're not seeing sales grow. One chunk of that is we raised our prices, so now we're not as competitive. We're not at their price level. We're not quite at the Cisco level, right? But we realize price is super important for this market, right? Number two, you're going through quarantines and in and out and lockdowns. And California is the only place we are, so restaurants aren't fully reopened, right? So they're going to go to Costco and Restaurant Depot to get their supplies because they don't need full sale distribution. So we have to think, what are we going to do to fill this up, right? Fill our warehouse up and get back on a growth track as things start to normalize. And so we had two things, right? Two paths to do that. We need to get this sales in the building, so we should M&A some smaller distributors. A lot of those smaller local mom and pop distributors are run by, you know, people that have busted their ass for 40 years. The second generation does not want to run it in the same way, right? Like, so they need to find a handoff to get that generational wealth, right? Sell it. Um, and your multiples are pretty good coming off the tails of COVID, right? And number two is like we need to find a niche or specialize in a certain area in distribution, right? We can't be everything for everybody. So like what cuisines are we going to specialize, and also what's the concept we're going to specialize into? And we decided what we got really excited on was like sustainability, or that little bit higher market, right? That had a little bit higher margin, but also like products that are going to be better for the planet, right? Systems, right? Like how could we be that distributor that really focused on that, right? And those type of restaurants and clientele that really cared about that, right? And it's not going to be probably quite the scale that we were at before, the long-term scale, but that's still a multi-billion-dollar opportunity,
Hmm.
right? But how are we not selling to just every diner long term? How are we selling to those restaurants that really, care about sustainability? And so we sort of combined that and packaged it into a pitch, right? That's our new future, right? We're going to M&A to get initial scale in a new market, and then we're going to sort of brand toward these type of restaurants and this type of product, right? And so think of it as more like sort of an exclusive group. And fine if you're not part of it, but there's a lot of restaurants that will be.
Gotcha. And
Um,
that's Series C funding was based on that
Yep,
model.
based on that. Based on that model, then you can get really tight with your supply, right? Who you're supplying from. You don't have all this variability in suppliers. You can get really tight on your routing and type of customer, right? So don't know if you know like concept of SKUs, but like Cisco US Food or like a Safeway carries like 25,000 products in a store, and it's like how do you get tighten that to 5,000, right?
Yeah.
And then there's efficiency in that, where we could offer those products at a better price. We thought if we got to scale.
Gotcha. Okay. What happens after that? This
Oh,
is
that blows. Yeah. So this is the part about like no, I think in a way know when to call it quits. And like this is from my personal side. I know some of my other co-founders, ended up in the same place. COVID and just surviving that basically took so much out of us, right? And me personally, because I am the operator, so like when all the operations people that we hired had to be like, oh, I took over all ops, right?
mm,
And that is a dark time to take over ops, right?
yeah.
So I sort of went to the dark side. I just at the edge of burnt out. So when we did the M&A, basically it's like Vincent can't be involved. Well, if that's the answer, I shouldn't have been involved. If I look in hindsight in the company, or a lot of it, we should have transitioned, I think, a little bit earlier out of Cheetah than we did, because what ends up happening is the M&A turns into a disaster, right? Because there's some non-tech people leading parts of the tech integration. It doesn't work. You basically churn a bunch of the sales from the M&A, and then guess who's right back in ops?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like you want to drive the final like stake into burnout. That was it, right? Like, and so when that happened, basically I'm like I gotta figure out my transition out of this company, right?
Yeah.
Because like I am no longer an A plus player, right? when it becomes a job, you cannot be a founder. Like that is like a rule that will take to the grave. Like when it's just like all of a sudden I'm like waking up and punching in and out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't give a shit at the level I need to give a shit to be a crazy founder. Like you got to give a shit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I helped we transition through that, helped to hire a new exec team to figure out where the company needed to go, to do pull one more save. But it was like, nope. And probably I look in hindsight, a key learning is like if you're not willing to be in the hardest part of that next stage of the company, and that's giving you the ick, then be honest with yourself and be like, not the company for me to be at anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Yeah.
that's, you know, like if I would say that's the biggest mistake of my time at Cheetah, wasn't all the things we did wrong or expanding too quickly or, basically like, being on a growth bender, drug feeling bender binge. It was, I don't want to be highly involved in the M&A portion of this new vision. Then I shouldn't be a founder of this company anymore.
Yeah.
I
One
shouldn't
of
have
the
on the front end.
traps that you had talked about on some of the interview notes was burnout and overscaling. So just based
Mhm.
on what you've learned over at Cheetah, like what are you doing differently at Weya? And tell us a little bit about Weya
Yeah.
to give us the 60-second elevator pitch on that. But you've learned a lot
Yeah.
through this process. Like what are some things that you're gonna absolutely do different, not let yourself go there again?
Yeah, so I think, one thing is like, I learned about is like, and I think a lot of these physical world businesses that were tech enabled have gone through the pain of like, you're just not going to get the same IRR in the same time frame, with that type of scale. And so when I say like overscaling, it's like we knew we had to transition our warehouses, um, before we launched Dallas, but we still launched Dallas. But that just adds another layer of complexity, right? I'm like sitting there going, that's a bad idea from a pure business, but from a VC funded, you got to do it to keep driving the sales, right? So I think one of the big learnings is who are you? And I think we raised money from great people, like awesome investors. But I think a super important thing as a founder is like, do you raise money? When do you raise money? And are your interests entirely aligned? Like, is it a perfect fit? And the reason I give that is like, you do not want to raise from SoftBank Vision Fund and then be like, yeah, we exited for $1.5 billion because they don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
Because that does nothing for them, right? So it's like, if you want a company or your company has this potential to be, $100 million exit or a 50, like make sure all that's aligned and you're not just raising money for money's sake, right? And getting the valuation and blah, 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 not going to help you. So I think that's when I think of overscaling, it's like, oh, we got caught up in like this hyperscale, like add growth, growth, growth. But we probably shouldn't have done that when we were doing the transition from Depot to our own infrastructure. And the most of the pain was caused by COVID, but that was going to cause more pain than it should have, right? So I think that's a big key learning. And then product market fit, all of that stuff is super important. Passionate about the business. My God, business fundamentals matter. Do not forget your business fundamentals, and that's where Weya comes in, right? Like what we realize is like we should have died. Like if we did not have really good practices around like metrics, goals planning, all of that, like we should have gone out of business like 2 months after,
Yeah.
right? We should have, but we had built all these things where like culture really mattered to us. And we had all these things about like how do you build culture and hire people that fit into the ethos of your company. People didn't quit. Like during the shittiest of times, people stuck it out. People took pay cuts, right? Do you know how important that is when you're trying to make a company survive? And so when we thought about Weya, initially Nama and I, she was a CEO at Cheetah, and co-founder. We're like, we're going to start a consulting business to like help companies, do the right things and learn from not only our mistakes but the templates and tools and ways to actually build structure in a startup, not a, Walmart, right? To do it the right way for a startup company. And then we started playing with LLMs and we're like, we can build a platform that basically can take company context and certain workflows to basically blueprint and how do you build your business for you, right? For you, for your investors, what do you start with, for hiring? One of the first things we're going to have all people do is it's called Ikigai, which is a Japanese, if you've never heard of it, it's like, it's taking like what you love, you know, what the world needs, what you're good at. And it's finding that merge of like, what's your passion place where you can like do what you're good at, what the world needs, what you can get paid for.
Mm.
And like, if I had done that at Cheetah during the second phase of the company, I'd be like, I'm not, my Ikigai does no longer lives with this company's vision. That's why I don't want to do this major project. Right. So it's like, are you lined up? Do you have, have you set up an exec summary for your company? Right. Like that goes through like what your value prop is, what your Tam Sam Sam, like all of that type of stuff. Right. So we're basically building an LLM enabled playbook to actually set up your company from the ground up, right? Of all the
Is
things that
this
you need to
meant
do.
for like what stage company are you guys working with?
I think we're like, we're like, do we do hypergrowth? We're actually thinking like early, like, seed,
Sounds like yeah.
pre-seed, right?
Sounds super early. Try to get it right from the very beginning.
Yeah, like our thing is like, what a fucking shame if execution is the reason you fail. What a
Mm.
shame. Like, so we will help you get that set up. We're going to and then when you get stuck and the platform can't help you, we want to connect to things like PEF and experts and saying, given your current problem, you need to talk to this person, right? Have that two-way market. It's not taking the human completely out of it, but like, let's set up your business infrastructure based on the context of what you do the exact right way. And most, we tried doing it in standard LLMs and it just doesn't work, right? Because it's trying to be the tool for everybody, but it's like, you know, you don't need Google Vision for most business problems. Like it's not the
It seems like
it's not the issue.
it seems like it might be difficult, and let me know if you've encountered this, but usually when I've found founders are at the very beginning of their journey, like they are subject matter experts, they know things that other people don't know.
Hmm.
They believe the hockey stick is going to happen. They've been trained to not listen to anybody,
Totally.
and so how do you get resistance trying to engage with them that early on in the process? Like, well, nothing's wrong right now. We've got this whole thing figured out. Like, we'll call you when we need you, and they're calling you when it's too late.
Yeah, I mean, like, and this is the other side of it, right? So it's like some people think they know it all, which is trying like it's actually like a lot of times like second time founders are a lot more, like, oh, I will go through things to get help because I've gotten burned in the past. And there will be some resistance to that. So I think it's making sure it's super relevant of like it's not a billion things. It's not like, oh, you need SOPs for every freaking department day one, right? It is like going through a one-page executive summary and it's all like, yeah, we built something that basically will be like, you'll be like, what's the pain point from a customer? And it's like, that's vague and you have nothing attached to it. Please be more specific, right? Like, actually, it's more of like, instead of thinking of it like setting up things in a very rote way, it's sort of like a Socratic pushing that founder through like Socratic questioning, like a co-founder going, I don't agree with that, or like that's vague, or like you have no market research behind like your TAM numbers. Please give me your freaking research article, right? Like the things that you should do, um, but not saying, oh, we have the insight into your market and what people are going to want. But like, yeah, you set up this experiment. Are the results hitting? Yes or no? Let's be a sounding board, right? For you said you're going to do this new product release. Is it? And you said you're going to get this much growth, right? Like when I think I said something in like my setup for this is like feelings aren't facts. Feelings can lead to an experiment that you're going to run a scientific method, but then what are you going to base success and failure off of, right?
And the
It can't
tool is
just be gut.
catching that. The tool is saying, "Hey, these are feelings. Basically,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need to deal with facts."
Yeah, exactly. It's like I worked with some founders, like a first time person, and it's like it is pitching, it's like all these slides, and I'm all like, I put them through our executive summary module because it fit what he needed, and I'm like, you need to be able to explain your company in this one page. It needs to fit on one effing page before you can expand it out and pitch it, and like it's all over the place, and it's like, what's your value prop? It's like a paragraph, and our thing is like, yeah, that's gobbledygook.
Mm.
Like, let's tighten this up, right? Not telling you what it is, but it's like, yeah, no investors, or nobody's going to listen when it's, my value prop is da 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 da. It's like I think about kids. It's like blah 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 mitochondria blah blah. Like,
Yeah, executives and VCs are much like children in that
yeah,
regard.
yeah. And I'm like, so it's like, how do you do this in a sentence? How do you set these things up to be nimble, right? And so we had all the know-how. We're like, how do we transition this? to the highlight and tell to a founder, it's like, hey, you know, it's about time that set up X, Y, and Z, right, for your
Hmm.
company. Like like you're about to do your first hiring thing, and you don't have any values. And like that's going to come back to bite you. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you need a mission state and values right now.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'll hire the most experienced, perfect person on resume standards, and they're the absolute worst human being that could work for your company.
100% done it so many times, right? And it's like, you know, and it's like your values need to be like company specific. Like one of our big ones is like, our new company is like transparency, be transparent. That's great, not for the fucking CIA. Like,
Right.
you don't want that to be like, and it's fine for that not to be a value of their. So you got to figure out what are the values that fit with your company and mission state, and then hire people that align with that. And even if somebody's resume, you're right here, but values wise, they're here. I'd rather hire resume to here values,
I
right?
took just yesterday, I took one of my teams in a business that I own through a process where I asked them, what attracted you to working at this company initially? Go back in time. And then they wrote all of these things down. I said, what do you enjoy most about working with us right now? We wrote all those down. And when I wrote those down, I said, we've had a few departures at the company recently who left because of the things that you love. So someone loved to be challenged. Another
Mm,
person loved accountability. Another person loved that we do a weekly personal and professional development call. And each of these things, people left because they didn't want to do the personal development call. They didn't want to be held accountable. They
yeah.
didn't want to be challenged. And these were high quality from a technical standpoint
Yeah.
people. But isn't that interesting that the things that some people love are the exact reason why someone absolutely, it's the worst company they could ever work for.
Totally, right? And like the thing is like people don't understand like a lot of what we're, like what I think like is gonna end up having anyway is like not your like HR legalese hiring. Like we think about like how do you basically like here's how you build a business the right way. But your hiring practices of who you hire, like when you're at a big company, like okay, General Mills, what do they grow? 2% year over year? Do you know how much shittier you can be at hiring at General Mills than you can be at a fast growing startup?
Yeah.
Because like you're not like if a person leaves, you hire your first PM and they leave, and you're growing, you're host. So you best make sure that they line up in every vector of your company. And if they don't, oh boy, are you in trouble,
Yeah.
right? There's not seven backups, and your company, by the way, oh my God, it's been 7 months and it's doubled in size. So like you can't have attrition. And you're right, like, yeah, it's not some people like to be challenged, some people don't. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It depends on what your company is, what your ethos, right? I can take a value from any company and you can flip it to another one and you'd be like that would never work, right? What
Yeah.
is the old Facebook one early on, which worked I think early on, for is like move fast and break things. Yeah, probably not the best at Sutter Health,
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
right? Like you don't want people like, and if you take somebody that like moves fast and breaks things and you put them in like cancer research, like
Probably not the best fit.
not the best thing. So it's like, yeah, that it's like every bad hire I made was on me. It's not on them.
Yeah.
Everyone, everyone is on. It was on me for a high enough level position, right? Not for like when you're just doing like a job fair for a ton of hourlies for a new warehouse launch, right? You're going a little bit, spreading a little thinner there. But like, I I once didn't have vet a data scientist hard enough for what I needed, right? And it's like, oh, on paper, this person's like really they're a research person, not a startup build something from scratch person,
Yeah.
and that just blew up, right?
Yeah.
That's on
Yeah.
me.
Hey, the last thing I want to talk to you about, because we're running out of time here, is and we probably spent a whole hour on this, but you said you'd wish you'd learned to only worry about what you can control, and that's front and center on the Way of Frames website. Is take ownership of the things that you can control. Any specific patterns that you've seen in founders or just in the founding group over at Cheetah of things that we as entrepreneurs regularly worry about or put too much time in that we just have no control over? You'd say, hey, stop going over there, right? That people could potentially relate to and maybe immediately take a different turn?
Yeah, I mean, like, so there's a couple things. Like the first one and the biggest one, because we went through it with market conditions. Like the amount of time that I spent initially worrying about when will the market turn back on? When will the government reopen things? When will this happen? When will that happen? It's like worrying about, I guess, like not like a tariff, right? Like, what is it going to go to? Like, you have most people, like, I found a goose egg.
Yeah.
Like, so what you can do is say, here are the different options. How will I be prepared for each one? Control what you can control internally, right?
It's how
How do
you
I deal with my
react to those unexpected things. You can control that.
Yeah, exactly. So like I'll give a tangible example in COVID is okay, I knew they were gonna reopen restaurants eventually, right? And I knew. I didn't know when, so stop worrying about when and worry about what you're gonna do when they do, when it reopens. So then I had a plan of like, how do I scale up my supplies? How do I scale up my sales? How do I rehire? Like that's what I can control, right? Do the right process, do the right work on the things that you can, right? And I think that's for anything, don't freak out if like AWS goes down and your app goes down, right? You have no control over that. Set up systems and practices in place for when that happens. You can control that. How do you notify customers? How do you deal with it, right? Like don't ruminate on the thing that you just cannot touch. Instead, ruminate on the things that you can.
It's so simple, but I think what's difficult is
Yeah.
it's simple but difficult is human nature causes us to
Yeah.
go in the wrong direction, right? We get
Totally.
sucked into the drama, right, of
Yeah.
things instead of taking a step back and, we can't control the weather or tariffs or COVID or anything
Yeah.
else, but we can write down
Yeah.
path A, B, C, D, E, F, however
Yep.
many, right? And just feel, and
Yeah.
there's comfort in knowing that. If I have that on a piece of paper, there's comfort in knowing if this
Yep.
happens, I have 5 different ways I could react to it.
Yeah. And if something bad happens, you can have like disaster protocols of like, call lists and stuff like that. The best practice that I taught myself, take a breath, go have a fucking coffee or something. Just go step away. So I'll give you this. It was near the very end of my time at Cheetah. And PG&E did a PG&E thing and power went out for the whole warehouse, in those big refrigeration units. We had backup generators, but we weren't buying $2 million new worth of them to keep the whole place on. So it goes out and I go, that's really freaky. Adrenaline spikes, right? Like, what do we do? I got in my effing car. People were like wildly like, they're like, how is he doing this? I got in my car. I went to the local coffee shop. I sat down. I had a coffee. I read a news article and
Mm-hmm.
I said, simmer the fuck down.
Yeah.
Then I came back and I say, okay, this is a situation. We don't know when it's going to come back on. It's anytime in the next 72 hours because that's what PG&E says. What can we do?
Mm-hmm.
I can't do anything. Okay, get comms that we're not delivering tomorrow if power doesn't come on by this time. Close all the doors. The rooms can hold temp for 4 days and product won't be hurt, right? Because it's big insulator. Like, what can we do? Like, don't freak. That's external. Oh no, what if it doesn't come back on for 2 days, 5 days?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
That
come
makes
up with
total
plan.
sense, man, because you're already as a founder operating at level 8, 9, 10, from an anxiety and pressure
Yeah.
standpoint. When something bad happens, the worst place you should be is at like 11.
Yeah.
You need to get back down to some manageable,
Yeah.
calm state to make good decisions.
Yeah, so that's the thing that I've learned is like if something's freaking you out, like go take a breath, like because you think it's just like human nature, right? Like what you said, it's like fight or flight. And
Yeah.
the joke I always say is like this is not a Kodiak grizzly bear standing in front of you. If it is life or death, then let that system take over. Don't be like, oh, I wonder what the bear wants, right? Like
Yeah.
figure out to get the hell out of there. But in most business things, like you're not going to die. You're literally not in physical danger,
No.
almost ever.
And even think about
It's
like the urgent important matrix, which I always have in my
yep.
head, right? It's like the very, very few things fall in urgent and important, but everybody in the company, co-founders, clients, everyone will try to move things in that
Mhm.
in that quadrant over and over again. You've got to be disciplined about like keeping it in the right quadrant.
Prioritization is like that way. It's like one of the first things of like effort versus impact, like in that like and how urgent something is, and even something like the power going out. Urgent-ish, actually.
Yeah.
But you
But you
got 45 minutes to cool the fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've got however many dozens of hours, 2 days, the generators, whatever, right? You've got a little bit of time. The building
And
isn't burning down.
it isn't burning down. There was once where there was a brush fire outside the building, and it's like, that's when you're like, everybody
That's
freaking
different.
evacuate.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's an actual, like, boom, act right now. But you're sitting there going, so I always ask, is anybody going to die? Is anybody in physical danger? Customer, client, employee?
Yeah.
No. This is not a real emergency. It's an emergency in my head. This is
Right.
actually a think through
Take
problem.
a
And
break.
so, yeah, so take a break. And so if I could do anything for founders, like you feel that the adrenals kick in, you go take a break until you got to give it 15, 20 minutes until your heart rate and all those hormones get out of your system. You got to
Yeah.
dial it down. And do not forget, every employee is looking at you. Your energy becomes their energy. If it's an emergency to you, they're going to lose their shit.
Yeah.
Right. And so, well, I remember that experience because everybody was like, "You were calm, so we were calm." And you're like, "You didn't seem to give a flying fuck,"
Yeah.
you know. And I'm like, I mean, I gave like, but I internalized it and then thought about it, and so it's like in any of those things, you know. And you can always up your level, right? I think of like resistance. I went through a lot of crazy stuff as a founder, right? So, you know, something that would like set somebody else off, it might be a much lower threshold, right? You know, I remember with my wife, it's like our kid when he was younger, about a year old, got his leg like wedged in. She got it wedged into the thing, and she's like, oh, freaking out. And I'm all like, that didn't even register on my like worry meter. And I just like walk over,
Yeah,
like
just
sort of
move the
just,
leg. That's it. Everything's fine.
yeah. It's like, but what like, but you know, mine versus like you know this, you know, Tim Cook, like his meter's way higher than mine for like what's gonna actually set him off, right? For sure. You know, or the people that are like leading Netflix and Paramount and all, no, with all that stuff, like their levels up here, mine might be here, you know, entry level employee here, but whatever, once it gets set off, step away,
Yeah. My old
step
boss
away.
told me, who's now a billionaire, and they took the company public and everything, but he told me one of my primary jobs when I was a partner at the company was to absorb the stress of others as a leader. And you think about some of those names you mentioned with, big shot CEOs of major companies. They may not be the smartest in the room. Several of them are, I'm sure, incredibly brilliant,
Oh yeah,
but their ability to absorb stress, I bet you they're number one in the company at that.
totally.
Is why they're in
Yeah.
that position. Hey, Vincent, we're running out of time, man,
Yep.
but I want to direct people to your present and your future. So let us know where we can find you, website, email, anything
Yep.
you want to share, where we can get better connected with you.
Yeah, so my new company email, we finally got it set up, you know, now that we did our like sort of alpha testing and stuff like that. It's Vince at wayoframes.com. And then our website is wayoframes.com. So check that out. If you're like, think about it, like early stage founder and want to help to make sure that you're setting up the operational side of your company well, like we're here to help, and we're going to give away like free consultation, free testing, so people can get access to the platform in this beta to give us feedback, but also see what's valuable. So, you know,
I love it, man. Well, that's one of the things I'm really down on with colleges is
mm,
like you have entrepreneurship professors that have never been an entrepreneur,
yeah,
purely academic, but like taking advice from someone like you and the tools that you're building,
yeah,
who have been there and done it, based on
yeah,
everything you've shared here. Those are the kinds of people that you want to be guided by as, you've been through
yeah.
the good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, when I think about like if you are like a monster company, right? Walmart's like big boy. There are so many consultants and people and it really, really top-notch people that can help that business, right? Extract value, put in the process. There's a ton of people that actually help with product market fit, which is not where we're jumping like Y Combinator, 500 startups, all that type of stuff, right? StartX, like there's so much there. But I remember it was like, oh, you raised like a $20 million round, and it's like from series like seed to like getting close to like IPO or M&A, you know, or you know, acquisition size. But like, hope you know what you're doing. Here's
Yeah.
some one-off people to help you, right? And like, no, like that's our goal. Is like, how can we bring structure to that messy middle for people so that they don't make the big gaffes, right? And it's like you don't need the structure of a Walmart. Like, you know, it's like there are laws and there are like when do you really have to be paying attention to certain legal things and when do you, you know, it's just like
Yeah. Yeah.
When do you not? It's really different. And so, to your point, I think it's like people that have gone through it, they know it. And it's like, how do we disseminate, like take this out and give it to founders so that, it's not this heavy-handed bullshit of like, a McKinsey person coming in, charging you $50,000 a week and putting in a bunch of structure you don't need. No, it's
Yeah.
like, what do you need and when do you need it? When is it, prescient? And like,
And what
no,
not to
you,
focus on. I think that's where you can add so much
yeah,
value to founders.
prioritization.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
don't even look over there. Not worth it. You
Our
can look at that later.
our initial dashboard is literally what are your three top priorities? Like that is it. That's all we're fucking surfing. Like
Yeah.
nothing else matters, right? Like
Yeah.
what are the three things, dude? Like
Yeah.
that's it.
I love that. I love that. Well, hey man, thanks for
Yep.
coming on the show. I'm glad we got connected. I want to stay in
Yeah.
touch through Post Exit Founders and LinkedIn and all that good stuff.
For sure.
Hope some people go and check out the new business and best of luck to you.